FP2.
Alfa Romeo
I'm back.
has the same engine too. That's actually looking pretty handy for a nice midfield slot, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Alfa Romeo with Kimi Raikkonen and Giovinazzi, the pairing staying the same. 7 of the 10 teams with altogether new driver pairings.
So, for the first time ever in Formula One, Yuki Tsunoda, Mick Schumacher. For the three stages of qualifying. If you're new to Formula One, like our rookies are this year, we go for 18 minutes in Q1, and then 15 minutes in Q2, and then we go for pole in Q3, and we lose the slowest 5 drivers at the end of the first and second sessions.
Now, 4 of those 5 drivers we're expecting to be the 2 Haas drivers and the 2 Williams drivers, unless somebody has a technical issue. Who will that 5th driver
you
be?
know you're gonna get nothing, don't you?
Could it be a former world champion?
Well, there are 2 lively
Please be.
Wow, that would be a shocker, wouldn't it? Half of this field have won
I like
Grand
it.
Prix. 10 of the 20 drivers have already won at least 1 Grand Prix.
Absolutely, which is a very
Told you, mate, you need to buy coins.
The previous Grand Prix winners, that man there, Lewis Hamilton, of course, Valtteri Bottas, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Daniel Ricciardo, Sebastian Vettel, Fernando Alonso, Kimi Raikkonen, Charles Leclerc, and Pierre Gasly after his exploits in Monza last year. The all-time record, 15 former winners lined up on the grid in the Belgian and Spanish Grand Prix in 1978.
We saw Lewis doing some personal adjustments there. You have to do that when you get in what is a very, very tailor-made seat. And you're about to have 6 seat belts tied very tight indeed. So tight, there's no elbow room. Somebody else has to come in and do your seat belts up for you.
Well, over the winter he was knighted. This evening he doesn't want to get knotted, if you know what I mean on that one. But the first active driver in Formula One ever to be knighted. So welcome to Formula One, Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Buzzing.
Nice ring to it, I think that.
Yes, he hasn't had the sword on his shoulders yet.
Not yet.
But of course, he is. Yes, Sir Lewis Hamilton. And George has been going well. He's got a. He must be frustrated to be back here, and he's not in the. Like it's improved a bit, probably not as much as they'd expected or hoped, but all he can do is drive the wheels off it and keep the wheels on it at the same time.
And keep his momentum in qualifying as a Williams driver. He's never been out-qualified by a teammate so far. George Russell, 38 Grand Prix, one of which, of course, was for Mercedes when he was beaten by Valtteri Bottas in qualifying. But he's beaten his Williams teammates in every single session so far. George Russell driving for Mercedes here in the Sakir Grand Prix at the back end of last year on the track that forms the outer loop of this Bahrain circuit. We're back to the more traditional loop for this race.
9th event here under the lights, and I think it absolutely transformed the Bahrain Grand Prix. It really did bring it alive, didn't it? Just what it needed. 3 DRS zones, as you pointed out at the beginning of the programme, or the commentary part of it anyway, Crofty, and also plenty of time then with the rear wing wide open down the straights.
Absolutely, slam shut when they take the corners, of course, and Russell continues on his way. He was 29.7 for the first sector. His teammate Nicholas Latifi a 10th quicker through that first part of the lap, of 40.4 for the middle sector. We'll see what Schumacher, Mazepin and Latifi out on the track have to do in their middle bits. Latifi's gone a couple of tenths slower.
Yeah, George looking a bit uncertain in the final corner. Well, because he was coming into pits, he didn't really attack it that hard at all. But we will see cars literally creeping round on their outlaps. Quite scary actually when you're out there.
Yeah.
They're all trying to keep out of each other's way, but they don't want to take any life out of the tyres.
Oh, and that is a spin for Mazepin in the Haas, and that's not the first time we've seen the man from Moscow go for a spin on this track so far this weekend.
Yeah, so
this time it's on that right-hander that
We've got to fire up. We've got to fire the fryer up. And they've got to somehow wring all the grease out their hair to put on your food.
Turn 13, the traditional place. Even Lewis Hamilton spun off there, didn't he, in the testing a couple of weeks ago. So talk about taking life out of your tyres. Sending them down the racetrack at 100 plus miles an hour while they're actually stationary, while they're not turning, tends to wreck them.
Maybe it's busy.
Into the pits then comes Nikita Mazepin as he has been.
Exactly, everyone's just because you've ordered from the best place in the world.
Let's say good evening. In the second lap, we played first. This is on board then.
T12, and then it falls a little bit downhill into 13. You do go across the wind there, and basically just no grip. Yeah, he actually came off quite a lot of curve, didn't he? I think the car was slightly unsettled as he began the turn-in phase.
What a player.
Now we see it from that other angle. He was well up on the curve on the outside of T12, approach to T13.
So it's MSC, Mick Schumacher with a 1:33.8 with the fastest time so far, and Sebastian Vettel is about to come out onto the track.
It's not brilliant though, right?
Down there, seeing even more cars make their way onto the circuit.
Yeah,
true.
A couple of Ferraris, Lando Norris's McLaren, and some Mercedes as well. So yeah, having the two Williams and Nikita Mazepin done a little bit of track cleaning. Obviously, Daniel Ricciardo now go out. Seems like we're having all the big boys to see Sergio Perez as well, and Sebastian Vettel. And Fernando Alonso, just want to update you on Alonso's troubles. Well, I was saying he's in a little bit of trouble with his car.
Were they too quick selling? Or is it a quick selling form?
He says the car doesn't rotate crisply at low speed, and then when he gets to the higher speed and medium speed corners, the back gets away from him. I imagine that's a bit of a nightmare.
Right player.
Situation.
Is he still in Arsenal cars?
We'll see what happens. You know, if as the great Murray Walker said, didn't he, Crofty?
Yeah, I think it's either that or yeah, it's going back to.
So having said that, you might struggle to get out of Q1. Alonso might well be well into Q3.
There is never a bad time, to quote the great Murray Walker, and at this moment especially. We think of Murray, who left us and passed on just a few days ago while we were here at testing, and well, a man that we've missed in the paddock for a while now, we'll miss forevermore. I hope he's looking down and smiling on the action that we've seen so far, and I know he will be for tomorrow's race as well. It's even when he retired from Formula One, Martin, whenever we spoke to him, he was so desperate to know everything about the sport still.
Yeah, and he was pin sharp up until almost the very, very end at 97 years old. We've got a 6-7 minute feature in tomorrow's race show, actually, just reminding ourselves of what a wonderful man he was and what he achieved and how loved he was.
18 minutes qualifying, and then
He's on a hot lap.
probably about 45 minutes, 50 minutes.
Coasting out of the pits, can space themselves out nicely without worrying too much about somebody zooming up behind them. That's as long as they don't take too long about it, and Lando Norris catches them on his hot lap.
Can't wait to see that feature on Murray Walker tomorrow. We're then riding on board now with Lando Norris. Now, he's beaten his teammate in qualifying over the 2 seasons that he's raced so far in McLaren. He's up against Daniel Ricciardo this season. Ricciardo's never been out-qualified by a teammate around this Bahrain international circuit, so the bar has been moved up a bit higher this year for young Lando Norris, but I'm sure he is more than up to the task and takes turn 4 nicely within the track limits and sets off through this wonderful SS section, swooping left and right all the while heading downhill.
Only 10 minutes to go, we've got 1 lap time on the board. Oh, a lot of understeer in turn 8, front washing out on him, and that means he would have to wait a little bit longer to get on the throttle pedal.
Charles Leclerc going well through the first sector, as is Kimi Raikkonen, and Lando Norris himself, all 29.2 through that. George Russell just a 10th back through the first sector, and Antonio Giovinazzi goes a 10th quicker.
19 of the 20 cars on track then.
This is what we want to see. Only Mick Schumacher in the garage at the moment. He'll be back out, I'm sure, in a moment, reaching the highest part of the track where Nikita Mazepin had his spin. Norris going purple through the middle sector, 39.4. I'll try and keep an eye on those behind him and see how that compares. Valtteri Bottas going through the first sector at 28.8. Lewis Hamilton a tenth of a second up on his teammates. And a 39.3 for Charles Leclerc. That Ferrari looking good against the McLaren.
Bit of wheel spin off the final corner would have cost him a touch of time, but a 31.7 puts him comfortably fastest at the moment. doubt it will stay that way.
It's Charles Leclerc next across the line, the 1:31.6. He's a tenth up on Lando Norris. We're now watching the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas, and as you can see, whilst he's up, in comparison to his teammate, he needs a bit more pace. Hamilton setting purple sectors. That's the fastest time through that particular part of the track so far, and he's done it not once, but he's done it twice as well, as Raikkonen goes fourth fastest just behind Norris. 0.03 of a second ahead of his teammate out in front. Here comes Bottas over the line, and a 1:31.2 for the man who took his maiden pole on this track in 2017. Hamilton next across the line, and from a 1:31.2 it's going to be a 1:30.6 that sets the pace.
And of course, that's very close to what Verstappen did earlier today, but in much, much hotter track conditions, which of course always slows you down. A bit less engine power, a bit less grip.
It's about 18 degrees cooler
You got an acca on
the track surface than it was for the final practice. Here's interesting, Sergio Perez goes ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Perez was a long way back from his teammate Max Verstappen in practice today, but Red Bull hoping that as he's new at the team, he can start to take the fight to Mercedes and get at least in between them.
Yeah, Max is on a lap very similar to Hamilton's at the moment. It's not looking like he's going to smash him out of the park.
Well, it was about 7.5 tenths of a second the difference between Verstappen and Hamilton in practice. It's a tenth of a second. Much, much closer in these opening stages of qualifying. 7 and a bit minutes to go. Verstappen has the fastest time.
A faster second and third sector, so probably gave up a little bit in the early part of the lap to have better tyres. But look at Tsunoda up into second place for AlphaTauri. That car is fast. Well, Gasly is a couple of tenths behind him at the moment. So the rookie, he's got such an acrobatic style out on track. He turned up in turn 8 last night, way too fast, four-wheel sliding, picked up the throttle, carried it all through the corner, and just hightailed it down towards turn 9. How exciting is he going to be this year?
Yeah, watch out for this man. He was the Japanese F4 champion in 2018. Jenson Button said he spotted him then. That he was going to be a little superstar. He then went to GP3 and F2, and now he's an F1 3 years later from his F4 debut, and that is not where you want to be if you're Max Verstappen.
No, that's going to...
Let me check on where I'm going to be wide out of turn 3.
Yeah.
A little bit's just fallen off, as you can see.
That's bad news, some of the straights underneath, and he rode the curve, and of course, if you straddle the curve like that, and it's serrated, it'll rip the floor to shreds. You have got the step and the plank to protect it, and any number of skid blocks under.
Come on, Lewis.
Quite clearly defined in regulations. But yeah, that is the first key mistake we've seen Max Verstappen make, and that will not have helped the performance of his car.
Interestingly, he's not looked like a man capable of making a mistake in any of the practice sessions so far. I've used the word chilled a lot about Max Verstappen because he just seems so relaxed this weekend. But now, Martin, we're down to the heat of battle in qualifying. This is where it starts to count. And, you know, we've been talking about Max Verstappen, watching and loving his actions on the track for many years. He's still very young in terms of, you know, Lewis Hamilton is 12, 13 years older. This is the first season he goes in with immense pressure on his shoulders with a potential winning car.
Yeah, he's not as young as Tsunoda though, is he?
That is true.
The first man born, the first F1 driver born in this century.
There's an F1 driver who's born the same year as me.
In the year 2000,
this year.
Yuki Tsunoda. It doesn't make me feel old when you come out with stats like that, but maybe it should.
4 Hondas in the first 5 then so far, which is quite telling. They've really made a step forward, haven't they, over what was a very short, close season.
This one is their last season in the sports before Red Bull take over and have their own engine in their own car. As confirmation there, as Martin said, the first driver born in the 21st century to start a Grand Prix. And the same Grand Prix where Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen celebrate 20 years of the sport.
But what about if he's on the front row? What about if he's on pole? Not way to go yet, but look at that. That's very, very good.
Sagamihara in Japan, it's the 5th most populous suburb of Tokyo. If you want to know a bit more about Japanese geography. So Verstappen, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Gasly, Perez and Bottas, the top 6, separated by only 7 tenths of a second. 10,
A line on the man who should have won here in the Mercedes at the second Grand Prix, George Russell. Well, not a great Saturday so far for Mr. Saturday. He's outpaced by Nicholas Latifi. Actually, you've got to say, a good, very solid lap by Nicholas Latifi in the Williams, a 1:32.5. The only problem for both those guys in the Williams is that you're going to need at least a 1:31.8, something like that, to be sure of making it out of this qualifying one session. As they're all starting to go out again, see the McLaren's doing another run. The Alpine, the Ferrari's going to go for another run, and surely Sebastian Vettel is going to have to get on with it. Kimi Räikkönen, what's it with that time, Crofty? Also, Giovinazzi, we expect the Alfa Romeo Sauber to be higher up than that. Oh, a used tyre run for Lewis Hamilton as well for his second run.
Confidence that their time of a 1:30.6 is enough to take them through. For the leading teams, it's all about getting through to the next stage. For those at the bottom, though, Schumacher, Mazepin, Russell, Latifi and Esteban Ocon, it's about finding more pace. And by the way, Williams, that is a lovely touch this weekend. Thank you very much indeed for what you put on your halo. Absolute class and a tribute to Murray Walker. Is Latifi going to beat Russell for the first time in qualifying? Potential's there at the moment. George Russell's got to pull something out of the bag, and this is the tiptoeing that Martin was talking about now, to try and keep those tyres from losing more performance than you really need to on the outlet.
Yeah, I wonder if some are saving another set of tyres. We 16 of the 20 runners now, 4 still in the pits, which presumably is Tsunoda and Gasly. Is Bottas out? Yes, he is. So the two, 17 out now. So what is it? The two AlphaTauris and somebody else not coming out.
Max Verstappen, is the one. I think he'll be content to stay in the garage, but more importantly, they'll want to have a look underneath that car to see the extent of the damage.
Sometimes it does come earlier.
Yeah, you don't need to be losing straights and aero control like that.
But that's the worry, isn't it? You've got a potential pole-winning car, and you might just have damaged it to the extent you've let the opposition, have a more equal chance.
So Lewis is on a used set. He's not going to burn up an extra set of tyres. He wants to keep them so that he's got 2 runs in Q3.
Here goes George Russell then, currently in P18, only Mazepin and Schumacher behind him. Mick Schumacher, the 2020 F2 champion, but he wasn't a man that took pole positions to win that championship. He never qualified on pole, saved all his best work for the start of the race. You watch him tomorrow, he could be electric.
George getting pretty electric on the steering wheel there, blowing the car around, and almost as if the steering wheel was connected to the rear axle and not the front. Turn 7. Cars carry amazing speed through there. They
Can't get a good
on the
lap
left
together.
on that curve to open up turn 8, hit the apex beautifully, over the blind crest. When you're sitting on the ground, it's totally blind. Pick a braking spot, you're turning, downshifting, turning some more into 10. Once again, just where he needed to be on the apex. It's a green sector for him as well, at 28.8, 3/10 quicker than his teammate. Down into turn 11. You can run high and wide just to open the corner up, get hard on the throttle, bring it to the left. Turn 12, absolutely flat out. Now you've got to get it right. The car just snaking a little bit downhill, front brakes glowing like crazy, and there's a bit of understeer. Just ran a touch wide there. But now he's got one decision to make, the braking point for what is the final the final 2 corners. There's just one corner if you get it absolutely sweet. Pick up the curb. And there he goes. I think it was a really nice lap from George. Will he be rewarded for it?
His reward 7th fastest for George Russell. Big lead from 1:31.3. Big lock-up going into the first turn there. Oh, and another spin and another Haas. But it's Nikita Mazepin again that's having trouble down there. Now, did anyone get caught up with the yellow flags down there and suffer and have to get off the throttle and lose time as a result of it? I wonder. Norris goes 5th fastest in the meantime, and a nice lap from him crossing the line now. Charles Leclerc goes 4th fastest. Driver at risk is Sebastian Vettel, and he could be very much at risk. There's Kimi Räikkönen, Sebastian Vettel not anymore. So still at risk. Goes 17th fast, only 17th fastest. Daniel Ricciardo is 5th fastest. Here comes Fernando Alonso, who's down in 15th place at the moment. And his teammate Esteban Ocon on a fast lap needs to get out of the bottom 5 as well. Lance Stroll now goes dropping down. Carlos Sainz in the danger as well. Alonso 7th fastest, and we're on board with Esteban Ocon. Ocon's worst qualifying here in Bahrain, 14th on the grid. If he can get 14th here, I would imagine he'll be a very happy man indeed. Ocon to the line, goes 15th, out of the bottom 5. 2 Aston Martins were in the bottom 5. Stroll now pushes Ocon back into the relegation zone. So Stroll manages to get out of Q1. What about his teammate Sebastian Vettel? No, I think he might have got caught up in those yellow flags when we saw the Haas in trouble down at turn 1. Sebastian Vettel on his debut for Aston Martin is out in qualifying 1.
Yeah, he did a 29.1 first sector. He may have had to just yield slightly with Mazepin's problem, but ooh, that's a shocker. That's a shocker for Sebastian Vettel. And Ocon too for Alpine. George Russell gets through.
And once again, out-qualifies a Williams teammate. Left it to the very last lap to get ahead of Nicholas Latifi. But Latifi is ahead not just of the 2 Hasses, but also Sebastian Vettel as well. For Williams to out-qualify an Aston Martin, didn't see that coming necessarily during the pre-season speculation.
Yeah, Vettel's not looked happy all through the test, all through this event. The car looks very stiff. It doesn't ride. There's hardly any bumps there. It still doesn't ride them.
The unfortunate yellow flag there. You're not wrong.
Yeah, that's. I'm pretty sure Ocon and Vettel took some pain with that.
And that might not be the end of the story as well, because the stewards are going to look at the lap times set during yellow flags. They're going to be investigated after the session. And it's a session that started with 2 Hasses out, Mazepin spinning twice, slowest of all, Schumacher, Vettel, Latifi and Ocon all out. Out in front, Max Verstappen though, and Yuki Tsunoda for AlphaTauri.
I'm doing my quick lap now.
Did you know you can learn on TikTok? A is for aeronautics, the creation of air-flight-capable machines. Air, meringues need air, and sugar. Sugar cane grows in well-drained soil. Wet soil makes clay. Here's how you make a pot. Potato. Potato. O for origami. Origami has 2 eyes.
But they start taking orders at 3.
Fancy or not, find anyone with 3's online experts.
3 ingredients, perfectly mixed. The right people to share.
Don't think you can.
A glass to raise. Raise a Jemison. Join in, wherever you are.
Oh my god, what an awful lap.
Welcome to your money purse. Here you can see where your money can take you. Talk with a Barclays Money mentor to make a plan to get you there. I've got this. Yes, you have, Jess. Talk to a Barclays Money mentor and make money work for you.
Go straight. It's easy. Everyone does it. Without any doubt. Any surprises. Go straight. And one day, when the same way can no longer be the way, take a turn.
Well, I had a terrible qualifying.
We heard Max Verstappen complaining on the radio that there might be some damage to the plank, so let's take a look at this. Comes through turn 1, then through the left-hander 2. Watch for the curve on the right-hand side, and you can see where he went so wide out, bottom down here. Big shower of sparks from the plank of that car. So when you're in the cockpit and you're sitting millimeters off the ground, you really feel that through your spine, and you know it gives you quite a jarring effect. So no wonder he was concerned. Esteban Ocon, this is him at turn 11. Watch as he comes through the corner here, and he's gone in a bit deep, then has a big snap of oversteer. Now he mentioned on the radio that the yellow flag cost him a little bit, but actually when you compare his time across the sectors with Fernando Alonso, he did the same sector one time as Alonso. It was in sector 2 that he lost half a second, and I'm sure some of that was here at turn 11.
Thank you very much indeed, Karu. Talking off turn 11, Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly. Little analysis there of where they brake and when they get back on the throttle and who's going out in the corner an awful lot faster. And, well, Yuki Tsunoda, who seems to have done his homework last night and found a very nice entry and exit through that turn.
As indeed,
Mate, you need to buy some
fastest in
cars.
2 of the 3 speed traps as well. Gasly was fastest in all 3 in free practice 3. So a great turn of speed, straight line speed for the AlphaTauri, and it doesn't seem too shabby in the corners either, does it? Missing, not quite in the action we thought they would be, was McLaren, I would say, in that session. Because they've been very strong. There was talk of maybe they were running a bit more engine mode than some of the others.
Now, talking of engines, Carlos Sainz stopped out on the track, and I think we can have a little look at the problem that the Ferrari driver encountered.
I think it has to be the vibrations in curb exit of turn 2. The problem.
So I think the car cut out on him. He did a Verstappen, didn't he, across the T2 curves. Pit lane exit is open.
So this was right at the end of the session. He only escaped Q1 by about 7/100ths of a second, Carlos Sainz. Managed to get the car going again, but as you rightly say, those vibrations on the curb probably had an effect on the engine as well. Let's go straight to the Aston Martin pit wall before the cars come out on the track. Otmar Safnauer, team principal. Otmar, not the greatest start, sadly for you, for the season. Sebastian Vettel, was it yellow flags or other problems that saw him go out in Q1?
Well, it was 2 yellow flags. I think he had yellows in turn 1 and in turn 8. So he naturally lifted, lost over 4/10 of a second.
So that was the Carlos Sainz incident that he got caught up there as well when Sainz stopped?
I think and Mazepin in turn 1.
Yeah.
So he unfortunately got both of those.
Which is cruel luck for Sebastian Vettel, who just doesn't seem to be able to catch a break in testing and in practice, and now in qualifying as well.
Yeah, it's a long season, and we've got a lot of running to do yet. We've got a race to run tomorrow, so he'll be okay. He's still buoyant about the race tomorrow.
Neither of us are Formula 1 engineers, Otmar, but for me the car looks quite stiff, like you're having to really hold it in one aero position, even though it's a very smooth racetrack. You've got a lot of work to do, haven't you, with this chassis?
Well, we've got to understand it a little bit more, Martin. But, traditionally we've run it stiff. We ran it stiff last year and it worked out okay. So we'll miss it.
Thanks ever so much, Otmar. Cars coming out. We can hear them
Why are you ringing in?
as you sit on the pit wall. And here is Valtteri Bottas.
But why?
A set of medium compound
to add it to your order.
Now, the tyres that you set your fastest lap on in Q2, you get into Q3, they're the tyres that you start the race on the following day. If you start where you don't get into the top 10, you can start on whatever tyres you like. Mercedes making sure that they've got a set of mediums left for this and going out on those medium tyres, as are the 2 Red Bulls as well, Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen, and there's Daniel Ricciardo on the mediums too in the McLaren, and Lando Norris as teammates. Is medium the way forward?
I think those that think they've got enough pace to get through to Q3 on the mediums, yes, there is absolutely no doubt about that. So the outliers are Leclerc on the soft for Ferrari, Alonso soft for Alpine, Giovinazzi, Stroll, Raikkonen and Sainz. So both Ferraris at the moment out on the soft tyre.
The soft tyre, in theory, should be the faster tyre, but if your car's pace is fast enough to get you through on the mediums, it gives you maybe a bit more playroom and wiggle room, shall we say, for strategy for the race itself. Mick Schumacher out after his first qualifying session in Formula 1, making his way to the media pen for some interviews at the moment, but letting some cars come out first. Whilst he does that, here's Ted.
At Ferrari, where they've checked over Carlos Sainz's car, they seem to feel it's okay. Obviously, they'll tell him to stay off the curbs. It's his feeling, Sainz's feeling, but it was the curbs at T2. We heard that, the vibrations that made that engine cut out, even though it's further around the lap. But yeah, they sent him out anyway. And we have Tsunoda and Gasly also out on their medium tyres, slower medium tyres. There's confidence for you. You'd say well placed confidence.
2 seconds, Ted.
I can now. Is there an issue?
Yeah, I'd like to kick the lions.
What do you mean?
Talented. He's just got past Lewis Hamilton for a bit of track position as well as Valtteri Bottas starts his latest flying lap. Now, Valtteri Bottas was 11th during
I was thinking that.
It's worth keeping an eye on that because since joining Mercedes, he has reached Q3 on all 79 appearances for the Silver Arrows. If he's 11th in Q2, that streak ends tonight.
Yeah, that's very impressive though, isn't it, for consistency and speed by both the team and the driver. In all of the conditions they face in qualifying and how easy it is to make a mistake on the absolute limit like this. But Valtteri could do with getting a handy lap time up there and getting his season underway, frankly.
Absolutely. He's thought a lot about his preparations for 2021. Whatever he's done off the track, on the track, not gone completely according to plan so far, but that's not just for Bottas, that might be for the Mercedes team as well. 10 minutes to go then, and we've got everybody out on track, bar George Russell, probably use an extra set of tyres during that first part of
I don't think it was prime. In fact, it might have been. G-Man, you've packed Ronaldo, Mbappe, Messi, Neymar, a lot of them.
Q3 as we call it. But if you do get through to that, you've got to start the race on the exact same set of tyres that you did your fastest lap in this session.
Team of the Year Neuer and Team of the Year. There was another one, weren't there? You got like 3 Team of the Years in one pack.
Right, 130.5 from Valtteri Bottas as he crosses the line. Next man to cross the line is a Max Verstappen, and he goes 2.5 tenths clear of the Mercedes. Here comes Lewis Hamilton next to cross the line, and he's got 2 tenths up on Max Verstappen. First time we've seen Mercedes ahead of Red Bull so far this weekend.
I wonder if there's any damage underneath that Red Bull, or have Mercedes left the sandbags out?
Oh, they've left a lot of them out, they really have, if that's the case. Here comes Carlos Sainz then, engine's running nicely now, and Sainz will be crossing the line behind his teammate Charles Leclerc. Leclerc goes 5th fastest, and Sainz ahead of Leclerc once again. Look, Charles Leclerc, we've seen him excel in qualifying, get plenty of pole positions. Sainz is really taking the fight to him over a single lap at the moment.
And I knew he would. Perez then on the mediums. That's actually a disappointing time for the 2 Ferraris. Remember, they're on the soft tyre.
Yeah. Sergio Perez is going to get his lap time deleted. Oops. Because he's exceeded track limits in turn 4. He's gone too wide, as has Daniel Ricciardo as well. 2 lap times getting deleted. There goes Pierre Gasly, 9th fastest overall then in his Toro Rosso, and just ahead of his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who you can see coming down the main straight now.
And of course, they're not going to have another set of the mediums, are they? They came with 3. They came with 3 sets. That's what they're given of those. So
yeah, no, they unless they want to use a set that they might be using for the race tomorrow.
Yeah, they shouldn't need a set, should they? But anyway, he's going to have to go again, isn't he? Obviously, Ricciardo.
Why did he stop playing it?
For running wide at turn 4, and I'm so pleased they've closed this down because the drivers are just making their own track up.
It was looking a bit silly in FP1, it was looking very silly in testing, and finally somebody came up with a solution. Stick to the track limits.
As I said last night, you know, there's a little, the safety car, the medical car uses it at the start of the race. That's why they got the Grosjean so quickly. There's a little shortcut down at turn 1 that takes you straight to turn 2. Why not use that? If you're allowed to just make your own track up.
Winds getting up a bit, as you might expect here in the deserts, just after 6:30 on this Saturday evening. And for the 2 Ferraris, Sainz and Leclerc, it's 5th and it's 7th fastest so far. Under pressure then, Daniel Ricciardo and Sergio Perez, who because of those laps being deleted, haven't set a time so far. We could look at, see what happened now to Sergio Perez in the Red Bull.
It was just way too wide on the way in.
Yeah.
He must have got some dirt on his outside tyres. He took such a wide line in, and he just didn't have the purchase from the tyre when he got there.
Fighting it all the way, wasn't he, to try and get back and stay within the confines.
No idea.
Daniel Ricciardo.
Back to right, officer.
It's Verkel.
Yeah.
Let's see from the corner itself. That's a long way out there.
I bet you do.
Silent team principal at McLaren. Just looking on it passively, as is Zach Brown, the CEO Big season expected ahead from the McLaren team. Now, Hamilton and Verstappen separated by 0.2 of a second. Possibly not what a lot of people were expecting given Verstappen's performance so far. So is this sandbagging by Mercedes, or is this damage to the underside of Verstappen's car?
Yeah, and how hard did Verstappen want to push on what will almost certainly be his race starting tyres? So, but you know, hang on, the pendulum's just swung a little bit, hasn't it?
It's possible. These are all questions that are being asked even at this stage. Ted, you're still not getting your answers.
I'm still impatient. Well, George Russell is on track, so let's see what he can do in that Williams. Great effort from him so far. So,
tyres, by the way, George Russell, just to let you know.
So, yeah, they're not looking to get much further up the grid. We'll see. So, Checo Perez, just being told on the radio that on that lap he was 0.3, I think, behind Max Verstappen before it was deleted. So I wonder whether that will mean a full switch to the soft tyre for Checo Perez to be absolutely sure of getting it out, and whether that will compromise his race strategy tomorrow, we'll have to see. But it looks like
yeah, no, it looks like a mill.
No, he's confident. Checo's still going with a medium tyre and a brand new set. Okay, so that's good. That's good confidence from Sergio. He knows that he made a mistake. He knows that he thinks he can get through the session on this run on the medium tyre. Good news.
Thank you very much. George Russell, then, you set the soft compound tyres for the young man from Kings Lynn.
And of course, if Verstappen's underfloor, and indeed, for that matter, Sainz's underfloor is damaged, they will be able to repair it with like-for-like, something weighing no less than what they ran in qualifying under permit conditions, if there's bona fide damage that they could demonstrate to the FIA.
Trouble for Red Bull, if there is damage, obviously not enough time to repair it now, which is what I'm sure they would like to if the damage is there. Here comes the stampede then, everyone out now with just under 4 minutes to go, and George Russell's time of a 1:33.4 is, I would imagine, what the Williams team were expecting. The important thing for them is that Russell got through from Q1 to get as high up the grid as he possibly can for the start of tomorrow's race. Pierre Gasly currently 8th fastest in the AlphaTauri, coming alive on the Bahrain International circuits for both himself and his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. The track, of course, where the team made their debut in the sport 15 years ago at the start, the opening race of the 2006 season.
I've never had a car with white wheels, but I want one now.
Yeah. Which car would it be? Some big American cruising muscle car to drive through the streets of Norfolk. Wave as you go past. I'm with you though. I'm liking the white tyres.
It looks great on the F1 car.
Certainly does. Right, red stripes. Antonio Giovinazzi, that's Yuki Tsunoda that's just blasted past him there. He's in a bit of a hurry to try and get a bit of track space, a bit of a clear space ahead of him. He's got Valtteri Bottas in between himself and his teammate, and I dare say he might want to try and get past Valtteri Bottas as well before he starts his lap. There is Pierre Gasly.
And of course, being the mediums, they're not babysitting them quite as much on the out lap. They'd rather push it and get some clear space.
So, Pierre Gasly, race winner. Pierre Gasly at Monza last year. He had an excellent 4th place finish, of course, here in Bahrain in 2018. Starting a lap now. Take us through it, Martin.
Staying left, because it's a right-hander, the first corner. Pick your braking point. Unbelievable deceleration there. And pick the throttle up smoothly. It's nowhere near easy flat out through there, but they do take it flat out and qualify. Again, stay left, climbing the hill for 4, trying to minimise the angle of the corner, maximise your minimum apex speed. Don't run wide through the exit. Just about got away with that. Now this is quite the roller coaster here. 6, 7, down the hill, keep it within the bounds of the track. Get it squared up quickly, down the gears, and put the nose in. He had to make a correction on the way into turn 8, so it would have just walked the car slightly out. Down now into turn 10. You must get this right. You've got a long straight ahead of you. You can get the DRS, the rear wing open, drag reduction system, and heading down to 11. Stay on the right-hand side. It's a left-hander. Carry a lot of speed in. Use a bit of the outside of the track, and now bring it left. Try not to scrub too much speed, although it's absolutely flat out. Don't run too wide on the curve. Get the car down into the slope. Load the front tyre up. Pick the throttle up. Stay left. Crest downhill slightly. And about 70 metres before the corner, now he hits the brakes, down the gears. Oh, look how early he picked the throttle up.
That was phenomenal, that pickup from Gasly, and it's taken him ahead of Valtteri Bottas, who's just on his lap now, and Sergio Perez, who just completed his final lap in this session. Third fastest for Gasly. Bottas goes second.
We're on lap 8 of 29. But we're behind the safety car, so we're a bit slower at the minute.
Actually, into the drop zone now as Giovinazzi goes sixth. What a lap from Antonio Giovinazzi. Kimi Raikkonen was
Yeah. I've got Warzone downloaded as well now.
Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, fighting it a little bit through those final couple of corners now. We'll get the DRS zone gap open wide as he makes his bid for the line and goes fifth fastest. So Leclerc is now down in the bottom five. Tsunoda, Raikkonen, Russell and Ricciardo haven't set a time. Leclerc goes quickest overall.
Wow.
In the Ferrari on the soft compound tyre, but Leclerc with a 1:30.010 is now usurped by his teammate by 1 millisecond. Carlos Sainz goes fastest. Alonso goes in to the top 10, puts Giovinazzi at risk. Can Norris beat him? And Ricciardo goes fifth fastest, pushes Antonio Giovinazzi out of the equation for Q3. Fernando Alonso is in Q3 for Alpine, showing their hand. Hamilton has gone third fastest. Norris goes fourth fastest as he crosses the line. And what an exciting end to Q2 that was, with Ferrari 1 and 2, albeit on the soft tyre.
Perez for Red Bull out of the top 10 shootout. Now that's a great surprise. Giovinazzi, he did such a good job there, didn't he? But Fernando Alonso said to us just before the qualifying started in our show, look, I just want to drive the car as well as I can, get into Q3 and score some points in the race. So, wow. That's a shocker for Perez.
That's a gamble that didn't pay off as well for Red Bull. Should they, in hindsight, have gone with a soft start?
What is it about second drivers at Red Bull? It doesn't work out for them, and you just got the raw pace of Verstappen to tolerate. But Tsunoda had a scruffy old lap. We didn't see much of it, but I mentioned his acrobatic style. I think when it all hooks up, it is something to behold. Yeah. When it doesn't, you're going to start 13.
Alex Albon was knocked out in Q2 on 3 occasions in a Red Bull last season. The last one being the Sakhir Grand Prix here that Perez actually won. If Perez is going to win this race, he's going to do it from 11th on the grid. Ferrari went with a soft tyre, paid off because they managed to get both cars into Q3. Lewis Hamilton, their fastest ahead of Norris, Bottas, Ricciardo, Verstappen, Gasly, Fernando Alonso, who entered this season having failed to reach Q3 in his final 15 consecutive appearances for McLaren in 2018. Well, he's back and he's in Q3 now. Alonso's in, as is Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, but Perez, the gamble didn't work on the medium tyre for him. Giovinazzi, Tsunoda, Raikkonen and Russell all out of qualifying in Q2. Ferrari fastest, but now it's time for the real battle, isn't it? Hamilton against Verstappen, who's going to take pole for the opening race of the season.
I've managed to work my way up to P1.
Every time you look back on what you've achieved, I think it's more the path that took you to your destination. It's the story you tell, how you got there. In the end, it's a lot of small steps that you have to take. Every single one is worth taking. It's always a new beginning and a new journey that we're embarked on.
Ever find yourself with a little extra? Wouldn't it be nice to share it? Turn it into something you really want. Or keep it until you need it. Sky Mobile rolls your spare data so you can choose what you want to do with it. Sky Mobile. Hello, possible.
The everyday only takes you so far, but on Wednesday takes you somewhere else. Somewhere most days can't. Wednesdays for stepping into the unknown. Our only fear, the mundane. But the
no picnic. But when you know your cash is sorted, you Brits sure know how to make it count. See, every time you spend with your debit card, your TSB Spend and Save account can help you save a little too. Oh, you gotta get one of these. So, you can keep doing the things you love. Because that's life made more. Good night, Moon. Good night, stars.
Out in Q1 for Sebastian Vettel. First qualifying session for his new team, Aston Martin. He'll start from 18. He did
Probably a lot.
The yellow flags in turn 1 and turn 8. This is what he thought of it.
But no one has a life at minute.
Sebastian, really disappointing. A big dose of bad luck as well with those yellow flags. Was it all down to that?
Well, certainly I think there was potential to be a lot faster, so we just made it across the flag, and then had the issue obviously with the yellow flags during the lap, so that made it a little bit impossible to sort of come back, but it's what it is now, and we'll try and see what we can do tomorrow.
It's fair to say that no one knows the true pace of this Aston Martin.
Yeah.
It's fair to say that no one knows the true pace of this Aston Martin yet. What's your understanding of this car? How does it feel?
Well, I'm learning. I think the quality was good and it was positive, felt positive. Obviously, I only got like a lap and a half, but I think we still have a lot of work ahead of us, and I think we would have hoped for a better start, but it's what it is, and hopefully tomorrow we have a good race. I think we can come up quite a bit and see what the day brings.
You do seem very relaxed. Your experience obviously works in your
If
favour.
I panic now, it would help. So, or if I was really upset, I mean, for sure I'm upset and angry that, it wasn't our fault in a way not to make it through, but we have to take it and do what we can preparing tomorrow.
Thank you.
His teammate Lance Stroll has just cracked into Q3, and the Ferraris on their softs are both into the last session too. A man who isn't is Sergio Perez. They took a risk to stay out on the mediums. Looked like it was the wrong call there, Paul.
Yeah, they didn't get it right. They sent him out of track in his first run. I think that probably compromised that. And then he was a bit shaky, obviously, with the track limits, and then it's all in. And what you have to do is lead above the table at turn 4 if you've not got a lap on the board, and half a tenth would have been enough. So when they look back, should have been on a soft. He's burned up 2 sets of mediums, more importantly ahead of tomorrow, so it's hard. But listen, Sergio is very good at racing wheel to wheel, so I'm sure he'll come through. But a shaky start, you can see the frustration on the radio in the pit lane.
Yeah, it's tough for him, as Paul said, after the track limits. But the thing that's excited me the most is seeing the Ferraris at the front. I know they're on the soft tyre, and a lot of the other cars are on mediums, but still, it's so good to see the red cars up there, isn't there? Challenging.
I suppose we're going to see now what the extent of the damage to the floor for Max Verstappen was. It looks like we were just keeping an eye on the first 2 sectors before he backed off there, and he looked like he was up on the Mercedes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he saved a bit of his tyres by going a bit easier on them, because that is going to be a race set. But this is a boxing match now between him and Hamilton, so absolutely credit. We've been waiting over the winter for this, waiting over testing. Green lights on, we're ready.
Let's go back up to Martin and David.
I proper like Korea about it.
And you can see the green light just a few seconds ago, signalling that the pit lane is now open for business, and it is time for the serious business. The dash for pole. Valtteri Bottas, who's won the opening race of the season for the last 2 years, leaving his garage for Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton, who has been on pole at the opening race in 6 of the last 7 seasons. Mercedes on pole in the opening race every year since 2014. Red Bull, it was all looking so good for Red Bull, but has Max Verstappen picked up a little bit of damage on the underside of his car?
You can skip it.
Could deny them a first pole at the opening race.
Because if you're losing, you can jump in. You can actually jump in now.
2013, Sergio Perez is out of the equation, sadly for Red Bull. The 2 Ferraris, Sainz and Leclerc, both still very much in it, but Sainz really
in FIFA, if you simulate now, you can jump in if you're losing.
Race for the Scuderia. Gasly's the one remaining. Alpha Tauri, Lance Stroll has made it into Q3 for Aston Martin. And Fernando Alonso, ladies and gentlemen, back into Formula 1 and back into Q3 for the first time since Monaco in 2018.
Tremendous effort from Fernando there. going to talk about how you can see the camber on the cars, how the tyres lean in at the top, maximum 3.5 degrees front, 2 degrees rear. You can see
it plays like Football Manager.
Still a shiny bit on the outside of the tyres, and also because they've toughened the tyres up, drivers have been moaning about it a bit, but they've reduced the tyre pressures this year. 21 psi front, 19 rear, about a PSI and a half down on last year, which should give them a little bit of grip back. But yeah, your tyres are everything. Is anything connecting you to the racetrack?
On board with Carlos Sainz, I didn't mention Lando Norris, his teammate last year, or Daniel Ricciardo, both there for McLaren as well. Norris, who won from pole here in F2.
Who are you playing as bowler?
2018, and Ricciardo never out qualified by a
That's
teammate in Bahrain on any track here. So there's Lando Norris in a hurry to get on with it, doesn't want to be behind Pierre Gasly. He's just tiptoeing around and taking his time. It's a 1 minute 53 between the first safety car line and the second safety car line, just to stop you going too slowly and causing any unnecessary traffic jams that the drivers have to adhere to. But Ricciardo's not thinking about that now. Here we go in the McLaren.
Yeah, you take a nice slow line into the final corner so you can take maximum acceleration out. Obviously it doesn't matter what you give away on the way in. Really hoovered up the apex nicely there. Keeps it well within the bounds of the curb. And this is where they're taking a bit of a cheeky line on the way in to 4, but not too much there for Daniel. Will he keep it on track? Yeah, he was quite cautious on the throttle to make sure of that. 5. This is 6. 7 follows immediately. Up high on the curve. Flick it left quickly. Straighten the car, braking, downshift, everything done before you turn the steering wheel. Now it's all about traction up the hill. And look, where are you going to brake? Where are you going to turn? Downshift, 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 brake. Get off the brakes, let the car roll in, let the front tyre do its work, and then down the back straight. Keep it right, keep it hard right, and you can just sail into turn 11 really quickly. And here we go, just lean on all the space on the outside. And this next bit of Formula 1 car just ignores turn 12 when it's got brand new tyres on and not a lot of fuel. It won't ignore turn 13, and he had to have a little correction just on the way in, but it all seems pretty handy.
Behind Daniel Ricciardo, Lewis Hamilton was a 10th up on Max Verstappen through the first sector. Early advantage to the Mercedes driver there. Ricciardo round the final corner now.
Come on, Lewis.
They all need to chase, and it is a time as he crosses the line of a 1:31.3.
I think that's a huge set of tyres for Ricciardo.
So, Pierre Gasly goes way ahead of that on a brand new set of tyres, 1:30.0 for the AlphaTauri. Lando Norris next across the line, and Norris with his DRS wide open, only third fastest, could be another new set of tyres for that McLaren as well. On board now with Valtteri Bottas, can't beat Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri, 2/10 down. His teammate Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, purple through the first sector, does go fastest by half a second, and now it's all eyes on this man Carlos Sainz and the man behind him, Max Verstappen as well. Verstappen quickest through the middle sector, Sainz 4th fastest, Hamilton's on provisional pole, Verstappen beats him by 2/100ths of a second. That's the battle we want to see in Formula 1 in 2021. Whoever wins comes out on top, doesn't matter, as long as it's close. And it's close by 2/100ths so far.
That's closer than we dared hope, isn't it, after all the running? We had 5 days of running at this venue, and it comes down to this, 23 thousandths of a second. Game on for pole position.
All the millions of dollars spent designing, developing and testing 2 race cars, and the 2 drivers on the front row at the moment, separated by a time less than it takes me to put my hands in my pockets when Martin Brundle says, "You buy me a beer."
And the only things you could transfer between those 2 cars would be the rain light at the back and the tyres. Everything else is bespoke, and still they're all going around in such incredibly close times. Amazing.
Well. Verstappen, Hamilton. Let's talk Pierre Gasly as well. What a lap from him to put that AlphaTauri on the second row at the moment, ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Carlos Sainz ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, ahead of Lando Norris after the first laps of this Q3 session. And if you're just joining us or you missed any of the action, remember, Sky Q customers can view the highlights from this session or the race tomorrow as well. If you're missing the first part of the race alongside the live action, press the red button to access Sky Sports Recap. And there's lots to recap so far, and to help us do that instantly is Ted Rabbit.
And there's more to come from Max Verstappen. Been on the radio to his engineer saying that wasn't a very good lap. He used other language than that. And he felt that this set of tyres just wasn't giving him the grip he'd had earlier in the day. Sainz comes in front of me. That was a used set as well for the Ferrari of Sainz. Okay, guys, so we haven't seen the best of what Carlos Sainz has been for the star of qualifying so far. One of the stars of qualifying so far for me. Well, now we know Ferrari have got some pace, haven't they? Well, we'll see where they end up. But yeah, so Max feels like he's got more to come. I can't tell, the team can't tell me whether there is significant damage to Max's car. When he passes me in the pit lane, I can't see any streaks on the diffuser that aren't there. So if there is any damage they haven't been able to fix, then it's relatively minor. But that's not to say there isn't any at all.
Yeah, it depends if the floor is scored in any way or skid blocks knocked about, but whatever it is, it can't be that bad because it's performing relatively well. But I think this is actually more, it's not, I don't think it's about Max not putting the lap times in, it's about seeing what the great Lewis Hamilton and the great Mercedes-Benz team have really got, and it looks like it's nearly enough, doesn't it?
Well, last year, Max Verstappen was the
only
Mercedes driver in the whole of the 2020 season to take a pole position. He did it in the final race in Abu Dhabi, and he went into the winter after a commanding victory as well. So far, with 4 minutes to go here, it's Verstappen on pole once again. At a track, Martin, he's never been on the front row, he's never won here, he's never been on pole either, but at the moment, he's just shading it.
I mean, we were cruelly and very, very sadly denied Senna versus Schumacher, weren't we, over a good period of time. Let's hope we can get plenty more of Verstappen versus Hamilton.
Meanwhile, Lance Stroll on a flying lap, 28.7 for the first sector. That compares well with Valtteri Bottas's first sector in his Mercedes. The middle sector, though, tests the aero an awful lot more. So is the Aston Martin up to a job comparable to Bottas and the Mercedes? He's fighting that a bit going through turn 11 and making his climb up the hill to the end of that second sector, which comes just before turn 13. It was a 39.0 for Lance Stroll, and that's it's about a 2/10 down on the Valtteri Bottas time in that Mercedes as Stroll continues on his way.
So they're desperately trying to get track position, and of course they've got to get over the line before the red lights come on to be able to complete a flying lap, and they want a very slow out lap, so they need to get out there and get their elbows out and prepare the car for the hot lap.
Sixth fastest for Lance Stroll in the end in the Aston Martin. Sixth fastest, if he stays there, that will be his best qualifying here in Bahrain. Ted, to you.
But it was Valtteri Bottas who lost out in the Mexican standoff as to who's going to go out. He's not going to get a toe off anybody unless he can get one off a Lance Stroll returning to the pits. But it seems unlikely. Everyone was waiting for everybody else. Bottas went first, and then we got everyone scrambling to get out the pit lane.
Yes.
Almost colliding a few of them, actually.
Bottas, Hamilton, Gasly, and then Verstappen, Leclerc is the order.
And Verstappen has been really marching through the pack. He's certainly not nursing those new soft tyres as much as some. He needs to be sure that he doesn't burn those out a little bit too quickly in the lap, such that they won't stick with him for turns 13 and 14.
Yeah, he might just need to settle in position at the moment. He's been
maybe have to get like some decent players on low.
AlphaTauri has been performing very well. Shouldn't be catching it too much.
Okay, bear in mind they were trying to play some games in the last sector. I'll let you deal with the traffic now. Nothing I can do.
Yeah, it's all up to you now. Yeah, we've done our bit. You're there.
Make sure you don't get mugged while you're preparing your car. Basically, that's what he's being told.
You could probably get a couple of Barnsley players on low.
Behind him, as the two Silver Arrows in black once again for this season lead the pack on their way down to the final corner. Valtteri Bottas made pole here in 2017. His last pole was at the Sakir Grand Prix here in Bahrain. What can he do about his current position on his final flying lap?
Lewis wants to be 5 or 6 seconds behind. He'll get a bit of a slipstream effect down the pit straight without taking any pain through the corners.
Bottas through turns 1, 2 and 3. We've seen a few cars spin this week already. Coming out of turn 2, Bottas negotiates that safely. Looking for a first sector time round about 28.5 seconds to stay on the pace of Verstappen with that provisional pole time, and he's underneath by just 2/100ths of a second. Don't discount Valtteri Bottas out.
Yeah.
He quite often says his best for last as well, but his teammate Lewis Hamilton is a 10th up and setting a purple time through that first sector. He's 2/10ths up on Pierre
I know.
Gasly.
Hopefully he'll start against England as well.
Max Verstappen, who's 28.3, matches Hamilton through the first
You're up.
sector.
Yeah, fractionally ahead. So Gasly's the one who hasn't
True.
had a particularly stellar first sector of the leading runners at the moment.
Charles Leclerc at 28.4 in that first
Yeah,
sector.
we're a young
Matches
team.
Bottas, Carlos Sainz 4/10ths down on his teammate as away goes Valtteri Bottas. Through the middle sector he goes, and he's lost time in that middle part of the lap.
It looks like a Mercedes-Benz Formula 1 car again though, doesn't it? Turn the wheel, in it goes.
Lewis Hamilton is up fractionally, but Max Verstappen chasing him down. Pierre
Max is
Gasly had
quicker.
a decent middle sector.
Shit, Max is going to get it.
Hamilton, as Bottas comes to the line now, crosses the line, and it is only third fastest for Valtteri Bottas. Max Verstappen's gone quickest overall in the middle sector. Hamilton now crosses the line. He's back on provisional pole with Verstappen trying to stop him. Gasly now to cross the line.
Wow.
Stays fourth fastest. Max Verstappen's never had back-to-back poles in his life. He has now in Formula 1, and by nearly 4/10ths of a second, Max Verstappen has sent the Red Bull garage into raptures.
Red Bull are going to win the championship by the looks of that. Fuck me.
He's on pole for the opening race of the season, and it's the first time Red Bull have done it since 2013.
We didn't see much of the lap, unfortunately, but he saved his best till last, didn't he? 3 purple sectors, fastest man in every single one of them, and even fastest in one of the speed traps for the first time I've seen in this event. And that's an absolute cracker from Max Verstappen. He had an answer when he needed to. It had all been a bit scrappy up until that point, hadn't it? And suddenly he's absolutely unleashed a masterful lap.
We asked, was there damage after he straddled the curb and bits flew from the underside of the car? There was damage, and the damage was done to this man and to Mercedes. Verstappen on pole here in Bahrain for the first time, and alongside him on the front row, Lewis Hamilton. Now, there's a race not to miss.
Pole position, Max. Pole position, 4/10ths, mate. Fantastic work. What a weekend so far.
Finally, mate. That lap was good.
Yeah, 3 purple sectors. 3 purple sectors.
Well done, Max. That's the perfect start. Well done. Great job.
Perfect start.
Yeah, great job, guys. Of course, really great.
I don't know.
The season, but we worked hard throughout the whole winter, so you all deserve it. Also, here, the whole team, but also back at the factory. Great job.
Sales brochure out of the way. Lovely words there from Max to all of the team, thanking them. And so a great start for Max Verstappen, but not a great start for Red Bull, because once again they've got one car against 2 when it comes to playing the strategy and to having some options during the Grand Prix. It's Verstappen versus both Mercedes that'll be filling both his mirrors.
It's a very good point. Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas in top 3 then. Let's go through the rest of the top 10. Take a bow. Charles Leclerc, 4th fastest. For Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, and that was a lap that replicated his starting position at the Sakir Grand Prix here in December. Pole, of course, in 2019 for the Bahrain Grand Prix. He's on the second row for tomorrow's race, ahead of Pierre Gasly, who likes it around Bahrain and proved once again that he and AlphaTauri can be competitive on this circuit. Daniel Ricciardo, 6th fastest, ahead of his teammate Lando Norris. He keeps up his 100% record in Bahrain against his teammate. The margin, only 5/100ths of a second between the 2 McLaren drivers. Carlos Sainz, 8th fastest, ahead of Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll.
Didn't just take pole position, fucking beasted it.
And there, hugs and jubilation for Red Bull, who really fancied their chances coming here, and it might have looked a bit touch and go at times during qualifying, but he's the man that has led FP1, FP2 and FP3 out qualifying as well.
Of course, he's in the same bubble, same protocol as all of his guys, regularly tested as we all are in Formula 1. That's why he's allowed to go and hug them a little bit. Also wearing a balaclava and a crash helmet, of course. He's going to weigh him, including all of his equipment, and add that to the weight of the car to make sure that his car meets the minimum weight required.
So as I said, Martin, what a race we have in store tomorrow. 4th career pole for Max Verstappen. First time Lewis Hamilton starts alongside him when Verstappen has been on pole. And I think it's a battle we might see a bit more of during the course of this year. There was this one from Lewis to congratulate Max on that pole. Nobody has won from second on the grid here since Nico Rosberg in 2016. Valtteri Bottas, third fastest in qualifying, starts P3. If it's Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas on the podium tomorrow, then the all-time record for the most podium finishes by the same 3 drivers is broken.
Good effort from Lance Stroll to get the Aston Martin into the top 10 shootout, and welcome back Fernando Alonso in 9th.
Absolutely.
I think he probably outperformed the car there. They're struggling a bit at the moment. I think the car's well balanced at Alpine, but hasn't had a lot of raw speed. But that'll do for a first race.
So, apologies for the language if you...
Quackador.
A swear word there.
He played for us last year quite a bit. Young, good lad. He scored against Brentford in the last game of the season. Get him on loan, don't buy him.
For now though, it's time to have a chat for Max Verstappen with the birthday boy himself. Happy 50th birthday, David Coulthard. Let's hear from him down in Parc Fermé now, talking to the top 3 drivers.
Max, you've started as you finished in Abu Dhabi last year with pole position, but this is the first time in your Formula 1 career you have been top of the times in every single session. It's real. This championship battle could be on.
Yeah, I mean, of course we already had a great test week.
He's played a couple of times. I don't really know a lot about him.
For the race weekend, and yeah, the whole week so far, I think the car has been working really well, and it's just been really enjoyable to drive. Of course, with the wind changing a lot around every section, it's not easy to set up the car, but it all worked out perfectly in qualifying. So yeah, of course, very happy with pole position.
I can see some sweat on your brow. Of course, it is hot here in Bahrain, but you obviously had to work for that. For that last lap time, where did you get that from?
Well, basically my first lap in Q3 wasn't amazing, so I knew there was more in it, because you never know how much, but yeah, finally the balance was there, and then you can push a little bit more. Of course, the track is quite hot, so you have to be careful with not overheating the rear tires, but yeah, luckily where it mattered, we could perform.
And just thinking towards tomorrow, qualifying is all about single lap. How's the balance been on longer runs?
That's been alright. I think in general the cars have been working really well in short and long runs, so I'm just looking forward to it. I think we have a good car. Now we just have to hope that, of course, we have a good clean start and first lap.
Just a closing thought for you. Of the last 8 seasons, the world champion has come from pole position in 6 of those. Could be a dream year.
There are no guarantees. We have to keep on pushing very hard, but it's of course a great start, and I think also a nice birthday present to you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well done, Max. Lewis, you've always said you love competition. You've got it this year.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Well, congratulations to Max. He did such a great job. So fast on that last lap. Absolutely gave everything I had, but unfortunately it wasn't good enough.
That's interesting. You're basically saying that was it. That was a maximum piece. There was nothing left behind.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, there's always more, but it was the best that I could do, that's for sure. I got absolutely everything I could from the car. I think we did a really good job from testing to come here. The lads back at the factory, they've really done such an amazing job. And like our aerodynamicist Kim, she's been given such great information for us to be able to prove and get the car where we needed it to be closer to Red Bull. So I think this is to be that close, considering I think it's testing we got the program behind.
Well, I know it's not the dream position that you would like to be in, but it was a dream qualifying session for all the fans of Formula 1. 2 different manufacturers battling out to the last lap. So thank you for that, and good luck for tomorrow. Thank you. And finally, Valtteri.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Please don't. Thank you for that. Valtteri, we've seen you training hard over the winter. You say you've been really working on your preparation for the year ahead. It doesn't seem that you've really found harmony with the car so far.
If you pay the money, they can't say no.
The practice this morning wasn't quite easy. Had a lot of issues with the balance of the car. was hoping maybe the evening session is a bit better. It was a bit better, but Q1 we went out second run with the soft tires, which meant we kind of wasted the tire set. So in Q3 I only had one set of new tires, and it was tricky to compete against Max and Lewis.
Financial takeovers, I don't think you can anymore.
It wasn't too bad, but obviously it's not where we wanted to be, but at least, starting third, and from there anything is possible, and obviously the aim is only for tomorrow.
Yeah, we can still win from there, that is absolutely clear. Can you give us an insight as to what we may see tomorrow in terms of the strategies of tyres and the pit stop windows?
Yeah, well, it seems like us and Max is starting on the medium tyre, so I think strategy-wise there's nothing huge. I think we have maybe more hard tyres for the race. I can't reveal much more, but of course now we have two cars in the mix at the front against Max, so I'm sure we can cooperate and do something good.
Yeah.
We wish you luck. Thank you, Valtteri. Thank you.
How's that for an appetising start as Max delivers a cake for David Coulthard on the occasion of his 50th? I should have known that was always going to happen. If you don't Max Verstappen, I don't think DC stood a chance.
Yeah.
Tasty stuff. And tasty stuff out there on the track. Doesn't injure him ahead of what we hope will be a fascinating first race tomorrow, because from the neutral's perspective it's exactly what we wanted, wasn't it? We predicted that Red Bull might be slightly ahead of Mercedes, and so it proved in the end. Lewis Hamilton very gracious, but I think relishing the challenge that he's got real competition this year, and to have that inter-team battle between Red Bull and Mercedes, two great drivers, two heavyweights, slogging it out on the track all year. That's exactly what we want. And talking of heavyweights, a sensational one-punch knockout from Alexander Pavotkin halted the progress of Dillian White last August. Now the two heavyweights are head-to-head in Gibraltar for the eagerly anticipated rematch. Don't miss what they're calling the Rumble on the Rock. Live coverage tonight from 6 o'clock, Sky Sports box office, Sky customers, Channel 491 or box office to book. As far as we are concerned, tomorrow back on air. Remember, it's on the hour race starts all season. Instead of 10 past as it was last couple of seasons, 4 o'clock then for Lights Out. 2:30 we're on air on Sky Sports F1 for the first race of the new season. And there's all this to look forward to in the middle.
I know at the launch you mentioned legacy. What does the future look like for you?
I would like to think it's bright. I think over the last few years I've always, whilst racing's been my life, I don't want to just be remembered for that one thing. Like, this is all you can do. I want my niece and nephew to be proud of me when they're older, and maybe like our uncle's been a part of that change.
What the hell's that?
Simon Martin was a winner here in a car he specially built with his business partner Robert Bamford. When the pair started making their own cars, Martin's wife suggested that they named it after the site of their early successes, and the name Aston Martin was born.
And colossally, that's Mansell. And David Hill wins the Japanese Grand Prix, and I've got to stop because I've got a lump in my throat.
The warmth we felt from Murray was that he was intelligent, both emotionally and also intellectually.
Yeah, the most amazing man that gives me, a legend in his time. I have no problem saying I love him. He's a super.
And undoubtedly Murray would have enjoyed that one. Verstappen's 4th career pole, for the first time that Hamilton will be alongside him on the front row when starting from pole. We'll discuss that. A good start for him and Red Bull.
Technology and comfort in one. New Citroen C4 and EC4 100% electric. Now with a 5-year warranty. Happy days.
Dominoes to suit every budget. Dominoes, we've got this.
Max Verstappen denies Mercedes pole in the opening race for the first time in the turbo hybrid era. We didn't see much of it. Let's listen to it.
You did a pre-season tournament thing.
So you all deserve it. Also here, the whole team, but also back at the factory. Great job.
Nice to listen to that all the way through. And actually, when Christian Horner came over the radio there, it was almost like relief. Okay, we didn't know where we were. We weren't sure we were ahead of Mercedes. What were the emotions when he came over and he had a little bit to spare?
Well, you never really know where you are. That's the first test of the year where the fuel comes out, the engine modes go up, and you see where you are. And you can see it's nip and tuck. I mean, the middle session, it looked like Mercedes have got the advantage on the medium. Max came back at the end there, obviously on the soft. And I think maybe Lewis under-delivered slightly on his last lap, but it's fantastic for us to be starting. That's our first pole since 2013, and Honda's, I think, for 30 years.